us. Okay, we're now being recorded. In the participation in the past year or so, we're a little bit lax on that right now because of the pandemic. But you have to have been to 3 meetings or come out to farmers markets with us or gone out with us door to door or something to actually be able to vote. It's not a matter of just paying. But if you just pay your dues and you pay 27, you can get a shirt. Okay. Have I missed anything on that, Michael or Gordon or anybody?
The information to join or to donate is in the chat.
It's in the chat now. Okay. Okay, where are we at now here? I think we're actually really ready to begin the meeting and hear from people. And we're going to start out allowing people to have 3 minutes to talk, introduce themselves, you know, whatever they want to say about why they're running, what they've done, if they're an incumbent or in the past, and whatever they've done. And basically answer maybe 1 or 2 questions. We've got a lot of people, so we don't know how long we can go on this. Our first person is Liz Ortega, who is running for state assembly, and she has got more endorsements from labor than I've ever seen. And I mean, you know, I'm sure she's going to get elected. You know, and I really hope we can do our part in helping her and that she can get our endorsement. Are you ready to start speaking, Liz?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We can, go for it.
Okay, thank you, Carol, and thank you all of you for having me today. I apologize, I'm in between events. I'm Liz Ortega, as Carol mentioned, running for Assembly District 20, and I would hope that I get a lot of labor endorsements, given that during my day, I am the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Alameda Labor Council, representing 135,000 workers in Alameda County, and excited to win come this November to continue winning for our progressives in Alameda County and throughout. Part of the reason that I'm running is because I've spent my entire life basically representing and working and organizing unions. I'm glad Carol mentioned REI. And the importance of workers having a voice on the job. And, you know, that's why I'm here today asking for your support and why I'm running. I've, you know, during this pandemic, I've actually worked with a lot of elected officials, most of which were, you know, very supportive of our workers and stood up when they needed to do the right thing, and some that didn't. And that's why I want to make sure that Assembly District 20 has a progressive seat so that we have a voice in making sure that, you know, our grocery workers who, you know, were there for us during the pandemic actually had access to hazard pay, that the folks who were frontline workers and community members weren't just the first to get COVID and the last to get vaccines, but actually are at the forefront of everything that we do. And just lastly, just want to make sure that we continue to make history by having voices like mine represented in Assembly District 20 and continue to fight back against corporations that continue to attack our working families and trying to buy our seats. That's exactly what's happening in my district now. I am the only progressive in this race. I am the only one that's actually here to represent the working families of this community, and hope to have you with me come November. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to open questioning. Would somebody like to ask a question or make a comment?
I'll ask a question.
Okay.
Liz, you smashed it in the primary. You really smashed it in the primary. And asking you as a warrior for labor, there's a resurgence of the labor movement happening all around the nation. And what does that mean for the East Bay? And also another question, just an addendum to that. What do you think are the biggest challenges that working people in the East Bay will be facing in the upcoming months?
I mean, again, the corporations are the biggest opposition groups to workers having a voice. And the resurgent is a result of the last 3 years of this pandemic. I mean, in Alameda County, we're strong labor. We have a long history. And unlike the rest of the country, we've actually held on to those numbers pretty strongly in terms of union membership. But the resurgent is coming from workers tired of being considered disposable income, tired of being unheard, and tired of putting their lives on the line for the rest of us while these corporations make billions of dollars and are speaking up to organize themselves. We're seeing Amazon, Starbucks here in our own communities, REI, and it's definitely exciting to see. We're alive and well. We're going to keep growing. And I think the biggest challenge is what we've always had is being able to stand up to these corporate interests who do everything in their power to intimidate, attack, and prevent workers from organizing. The same thing we're seeing at the polls, with continuing to attack our progressive values and trying to buy the votes of this community. And we're going to make sure that that doesn't happen with so many wonderful folks running for office, including many women and women of color. That's also part of this labor movement and needs to be recognized.
Right. Thank you.
I had a question.
Okay.
Oh, I've been hearing about a Senate bill, so-and-so number from Rocana that would, I think it increases minimum wage for fast food workers. Do you know about that? And when is any details that you might add on that bill?
Yes, so that's if it's the fast food worker bill, that one is about basically fast food workers having a voice and being able to organize sort of not a union. Oh, sorry, somebody's at my window trying to break into my car while I'm in it. I'm sorry. Yeah, so it's a fast food organizing bill. I believe it's in the Senate, and I don't know if we're trying to get the governor to sign it. So I can get you more details. I don't have the number at the top of my head, but basically it's an opportunity for fast food workers to have a voice.
I believe it's AB 257.
Thank you.
Yes.
There's a question in the chat.
Okay,
Who-
Paola has a question, has her hand up. You have a question, I think?
Do I have a question? Hey there, Liz, congratulations on making it to the runoff. I do have a question for you. Can you talk about what you plan to do when you make it into the assembly to protect renters? We know that we have very few assembly members that are friendly to renters and to the cause of renters. The Costa-Hawkins Rental Housing Act is the main reason why we have such high rents, because it allows empty units for the business owners of empty rental units to raise the price to whatever the market will bear. So do you have any ideas or policies that you want to implement to protect renters? Because I know you protect working, you're in favor of working families and labor, very important, but renters are also seem to be ignored and not have a lot of friends with our elected officials. So where do you stand on those? Like to hear.
Yeah, I was just supported by ACE, proud to have the endorsement of ACE, which again is one of those leading voices in Sacramento to make sure that folks who are renting are protected. I actually am wanting to work more with them and to figure out policies to address our housing crisis, because it's not just about building. It's about affordability. While I do represent working families, a lot of the working families that I have right now can't afford to stay in their home and are one paycheck away from being homeless. And that has to do with a lot of these renters and real estate folks, realtors who are supporting my opponent and many others who are against moratoriums that are about to expire. And, you know, we're going to have even more homelessness if we don't figure out a way to address these affordability crisis. So I am working on trying to look at policies like Costa Hawkins and others with ACE to figure out my housing policy when I get elected. And renters are going to be a priority for that, for sure.
That's great to hear. Do you have any stand on AB 2011? It's the Affordable Housing and High Road Jobs Act that was presented by Assembly Member Bucky Wicks. Do you have any, are you familiar with that one?
No, we're working to try to, there's some standards, there's some language in there that we're concerned about in terms of our high road and, you know, and our apprenticeship programs and using labor, union labor for that bill. So I'm hoping that we can, you know, the legislature and labor can, you know, are working on it, and hopefully it's, I know it's going to get passed and signed.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, it's great, but you know, it's, you know, the prevailing wage would go for buildings with 50 units or more, and a 50-unit building is a 5-story building. So it's kind of crazy. So thank you so much for your time, Liz.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. We have one more question and then we need to move on. And that's from Alfred too. Go for it, Alfred.
Thank you. My question is, what is the top 1 or 2 bills that you would introduce and carry in your first year?
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting to me because I've been getting asked a lot about what bills I want to introduce. And I definitely started thinking about some of that. I want to look at housing for sure, and a lot of this you know, corporate speculation that's been happening. But I also want to work on the budget. I'm really worried about the fact that we have a surplus right now and going into a possible recession. One key thing that we have as legislators is making sure we have a budget that reflects the needs of our community. And I don't want to just look at, you know, right now things are good, but I want to start looking at making sure that the community that I'm going to represent is protected from cuts, because unfortunately the first thing that always happens is that public services get cut, schools get cut. All the things that we need to continue to thrive are usually the first on the chopping block. And so making sure I look at the budget to protect everything we have and make sure that we're not on the chopping block is definitely at the top of my list.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We have one more short question. I think it's going to be short that I
Okay.
missed in the chat. Kabir, you want to ask your question? Kabir, you still here? Okay, Michael, do you want to ask his question?
I'll do it. Kabir
Yeah.
asked, who is your or are your opponents?
So my opponent is a council member from Dublin, and you know what I would like to say.
Why so soon?
Sorry.
Antioch get back.
People, please put the mute on right now.
There you go. Carry on.
Okay, so you know my opponent is a council member from Dublin, and I no longer say his name because really it's not him who's opposing me. It's the corporations that are backing his campaign, like Philip Morris, Big Oil, and Big Pharma. Those are my opponents, and those are who we need to beat in November.
I would just like to mention, we looked at a number of candidates, and the person that's running against her, when he was, and this was in the Chronicle, when he was asked about his financing, he basically said he would take money from anyone. And that really is not what we support. We want money out of politics. Okay. Okay, I think that's it, Liz. We thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend or rest of your
Okay.
Sunday. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, Mark, do you want to introduce the next person?
Sure thing. So I guess we're going to be going from Alameda to Contra Costa.
Well, it'll depend on who's here and who
Sure.
needs to go on in what order. It's going to be a little wacky.
No problem. I like wacky. We all like wacky here. So I'm very pleased to introduce our next guest. I first got to know her and respect her as a compliance officer for the Sierra Club. And that in itself kind of shows her dual commitments, a commitment to the environment, but also in terms of maneuvering government systems. I think there's no civic bureaucracy as complex as Sierra Club's maze of bylaws and structures. She is running for a very important city in Contra Costa, El Cerrito, running for the El Cerrito City Council. Please welcome Vanessa Warheit. Vanessa.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that warm welcome. And I apologize for being late. Today is my birthday. And so I was out on the water paddling and then raced home to make myself presentable. So thank you for your indulgence. So my name is Vanessa Warheit. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a Bay Area native. I'm a mother, and I'm a public advocate for intersectional and equitable solutions to the climate crisis, which includes my work with the Sierra Club. Last year, I moved from Berkeley to El Cerrito. Those are both cities on occupied Ohlone territory. I want to acknowledge that. I graduated last year from the Emerge California Candidate Training Program, and I'm now running for El Cerrito City Council after spending almost 30 years advocating and working for progressive change. And I'm trying, bear with me a second, I'm trying to see you and see my notes at the same time, and I am failing. So hang on one second. Why won't it? There we go. Now I can see you too. Okay. So since 2011, I have been primarily focused on the climate crisis. I was the California organizer for 350.org. I was executive director at Fossil Free California, working to divest our state pension funds from fossil fuels. I'm now at Plug in America. This is my day job, is at Plug in America, where I lead a growing national coalition which advocates for more equitable access to electric vehicle charging, particularly for residents of multifamily housing. Over all of this experience, I have learned that the most effective solutions to the climate crisis are actually multi-solving solutions that also address other crises like housing and water and health, gun violence, inequality, racial justice, voting rights, reproductive freedom. I know that the solutions to these intersecting crises can be implemented at the local level, and that with the right leadership, working in collaboration with some amazing folks at the county and in our neighboring cities, that El Cerrito could become a model for good governance, resilience, and climate solutions. We have a progressive electorate here now. We have a committed group of truly incredible citizen commissions, and they need supportive counsel. So El Cerrito is the same size as Ithaca, New York, where they're building a Green New Deal and electrifying 6,000 households in the next 8 years. I am ready to bring a Green New Deal to El Cerrito, and I hope you will give me your support. I am endorsed so far by 350 Bay Area Action and a long list of progressive local leaders. They're all listed at vanessaforelcerrito.com. And I respectfully ask for your endorsement and welcome any questions.
Okay, thank you. Would somebody like to start the questioning? And we're going to be limited to at the most 2 and possibly 3. Going once.
Oh, we have Michael, Gordon, and Matthew.
Oh, okay.
Michael, you were first. Go ahead.
Vanessa, I live in Berkeley. How do you compare Berkeley and El Cerrito? I know you've been in El Cerrito not very long. How do you compare those two cities?
Well, they're very different. Well, Berkeley is a whole lot bigger, for one thing. The economies of the two cities are very different. Berkeley has a very robust tax base that El Cerrito lacks and needs. The politics is quite different. I mean, Berkeley, because it's bigger, is divided into districts. So the you run for a neighborhood, not for the whole city. I think, I mean, in some ways, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like there's an opportunity, particularly in El Cerrito, because the big developers haven't quite figured out how how much how much they could exploit us, which I think is a real blessing. So I think that that's a big developer money in Berkeley is a real issue that we don't actually have here. We have almost the opposite problem, which is that we are having a hard time finding folks that will invest in our community. And I actually think that's a huge opportunity, because then we can go after development that is progressive and actually supports working families and isn't just extractive, which is what happens a lot in Berkeley, because it's so big, because it has this international reputation and everybody wants to be in Berkeley because they think it sounds so cool. So that's just a few differences. Our city council, until 2 years ago, when we had this massive budget collapse, was very sleepy and kind of on autopilot. So the politics here is very different. And yeah, anyway, they're very different, even though they're right next door to each other.
Gordon. Gordon, if you can hear us, we can't hear you.
Yes, I'd like to know what your positions are on decriminalizing drugs and on taking local actions to raise the minimum wage.
So on decriminalizing drugs, and I think I put this in my, I'm in general a proponent. I've voted for the legalization of cannabis. I think that when drugs are a problem, they're a problem either because they're criminalized and then they suck money from the economy and feed organized crime, or they fuel addiction, which then becomes a public health problem. I actually am the mother of somebody who has become addicted to nicotine, and I look at nicotine in the same way as I look at other drugs, which is I think they need to be regulated and controlled, but not criminalized. The minimum wage, so the minimum wage in Berkeley, I mean, in Berkeley too, but in El Cerrito is higher already than the state, and it is already now pegged to the cost of living increase, the CPI, Consumer Price Index. So as, hopefully not for too much longer, but if inflation continues, our minimum wage will increase.
Sure.
I don't think it's enough. I think I would advocate for a higher minimum wage for employees of big companies. I think, Target and Walmart and Safeway can afford to pay $20 an hour, which really should be probably the minimum wage here because it's so expensive. However, the small mom and pop shops here, which is what we really need, I think I would advocate for keeping the minimum wage what it is right now, for now. Just because we are so desperate for more small business incentives in our community, because I don't want more big box stores to come.
Okay,
Matthew, go ahead.
I need to, excuse me a minute. I need to
Sure.
make a quick announcement that I'm not sure got made earlier. From time to time, there's been a little hostility and questioning, although none today. But I just want to remind everybody that we don't allow harassment. It's okay to ask tough questions. We don't allow name calling, any kind of hostile behavior. We have the right to remove people from the meeting. So I just want to remind people of that. Okay, sorry for that. Go
And
ahead.
Oh,
bear
man,
with
we're
me,
such
Mike.
good-natured, happy people. What? Oh, Go.
my computer's about to die. Excuse me while I just find a plug here. Apologies for
Okay,
wandering around my house.
Go ahead, Matthew.
While she's plugging in, I'll just make a quick announcement as well, which is I'm reposting in the chat the link for everybody to pay dues so that folks can be voting members. So that's there for anybody. Hi, Vanessa. My question for you is, I just want to confirm, do you support cutting the El Cerrito police department budget and redistributing those funds to other things such as free healthcare and affordable housing and jobs programs?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have publicly appeared at multiple public meetings advocating for that. El Cerrito pays more for, we have both higher salaries and more police officers per capita than I think almost any other city in the state, which is not right. It's a stupid use of our money. And I absolutely advocate for lowering the budget, especially because Contra Costa County now has in the works this 988, right? The mental health crisis hotline service that over the next 2 years will be beefed up to the point where if somebody is having a mental health crisis, which let's face it, is the vast majority of, serious reasons that you might need to call the police, you can call that number instead. So we don't need to be spending 29% of our budget on this highly militarized police force, which, by the way, was just approved by our city council to get a Remington rifle that shoots beanbags for crowd control. And I totally oppose that.
Carol, I see that Alfred has his hand up.
But,
Alfred,
we're that's been 3 questions.
okay.
We really kind of have a lot to cover here.
Vanessa, thank you
Alfred,
for
can
your
you do
time.
it- Can you do it very quickly?
Alfred, if you could do the question real quick, and Vanessa, if you can do the answer real quick too.
I'll be real quick. Go
All
ahead,
right.
Alfred.
Sure. Do you support rent control?
Yes.
Do you support?
Yes, I have been evicted twice. I have been a renter. I grew up a renter. I lived my whole adult life as a renter. I've been a renter until 2 years ago. 2 years ago today, I bought my first house, and I am deeply, deeply, deeply committed to supporting renters. Yes.
Fantastic. Carol, Vanessa, thank you so much. Carol, back to you.
Okay, so we're getting really jammed here. Everybody wants to be next. So we're going to here's what's going on. We're going to hear next from Kevin Jenkins, and then we're going to hear from Jules Geritz, who's the REI person. Okay. And then we will continue on with the candidates. Okay. So, so he's done a lot. He currently is a trustee at the Peralta Community College Board. He's a very big advocate for housing. He's running for a really important office for Oakland City Council. Kevin, do you want to tell us about you?
Absolutely, Carol. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. Carol, thank you for allowing me to cut in line. It is my son's 8th birthday, and happy birthday, Elijah. Everyone, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Kevin Jenkins. I'm a current trustee at Peralta Community College District, where we serve over 650,000 residents. We have a 4-college district, and I've been there for about 2 years now. There's been significant issues at Peralta. We've worked on going from the brink of insolvency to having a good cash balance. We're working on boosting our enrollment and other pertinent things to keep the district going. And thank you guys all for the happy birthday, Elijah. It is a big one. I'm currently the director of housing justice for the United Way Bay Area, which is a tremendous joy to be in that role. In that role, to date, I've given away $1 million to community-based organizations, but the need is so vast and so great. We had requests of $5.5 million. I'm running for Oakland City Council because District 6 needs strong representation. They need a strong leader who is going to usher us into the next phase of District 6. District 6 has been left behind. There's a lack of economic development. The streets are cluttered with blight, illegal dumping. There are also significant issues facing the city of Oakland, how we go about prioritizing our budget, how we go about solving community safety issues. So I'm running for District 6 to be that strong leader, a strong advocate for the residents of D6 and Oakland. And hopefully I can depend on your support as I embark on this campaign. Thank you.
Okay, would anybody like to ask Kevin a question or two? Okay, who we got here?
I have a question.
Go for it.
Hi, thank you. This is Paula, and I'm calling from Berkeley. I do have a question. You talk about there's lack of economic development in the area. Can you explain what that means to you? How you plan to bring that economic development? What do you have that's going to give you the special sauce as compared to the other candidates? Thanks.
Absolutely, that's a wonderful question. When you look at the district, there's no major grocery store in the district. We just got another restaurant, but before that, there were only 2 places where you can take your family to sit down and have something to eat. Also, before that, in addition to that, the small retail, the walkable communities, there are a lack of small retail shops here in the district. What's going to be different from me is the current council member has been there 4 years, and I don't know if that's enough time to solve these generational issues. Also, there is development taking place in the district. So the Coliseum has been, the African American Sports Entertainment Group is developing at the Coliseum, which is now in the district, and that offers us an opportunity to put economic development in the district. What that looks like, hopefully it's a grocery store, hopefully it is housing, hopefully it is small retail where people can go and shop right there in their own neighborhoods.
Okay, I'm taking a question from the chat. Who are your opponents?
Absolutely. One of my opponents is Nancy Sidebottom, longtime Oakland resident. And another one of my opponents, I can't pronounce his name, but I call him Yap, and he is a wonderful person too. And I think everyone in this race is committed to the district. I think that I have the experience, I have the relationships to move the district forward.
Mhm. Okay, the next question is going to come from Matthew Lewis.
Hi, Kevin. So my question is essentially, so I'm on the endorsements committee, so I've already had a chance to look at your questionnaire that'll later be sent to all of our members. One thing that kind of concerned me a bit was when I was looking at your long form responses on for our housing questions, like you talked to, it felt to me like you were talking a lot about like the amount of housing, like you were talking about RENA numbers, but I didn't feel like I was seeing the words affordable housing. And you were talking about stuff like Senate Bill 9 and Senate Bill 10 and Senate Bill 10, which you know, are coming from these YIMBY groups that are like funded by corporate developers, and that makes me really concerned. Like I'm not in Oakland, but I'm the secretary of the Berkeley Tenants Union, and like we really try and fight for a lot of affordable housing. I know like the Oakland Tenants Union does that too, and so I'm just based on that. I'm hoping you can, you know, like hopefully you can assuage my concerns. If you can like. Because I'm seeing you supporting these bills that are really about market rate housing, but not so much around affordable housing specifically.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So when it comes to what's going on in Oakland, and sorry, one second, Lisha. When it comes to what's going on in Oakland, when I talk about the RHNA, our allocation, we've hit our goals when it comes to market rate housing. We've far hit those goals. And so we need to get affordable housing, deeply affordable housing. Yeah, as far as the questionnaire, I talk about the housing bills that I worked on from my job, but I'm deeply committed to affordable housing. Right now I say my mom stays in Section 8 housing and has for the last 20 years. So my commitment is completely there to affordable housing, deeply supportive housing, and everything that we need to make Oakland just. The developers in town have had their day. They've made lots of money, and Oakland is a tenant city. And so we need to put in tenant protections and make sure that we have the housing available so that people can stay in their hometown. Hopefully that addresses your question.
Okay, I think we need to move on. Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know we promised you that we were going to have somebody from REI here. Well, we do. We have Jules Geritz. I may be pronouncing the name wrong. And he's going to give us a quick little update. Okay, welcome, Jules.
Hi. Yeah, I am one of the people on the committee of the unionization effort going on at REI Berkeley. Thank you so much. I recognize some of your faces from the rally. So again, thank you so much for showing up and supporting us. I was invited by Carol to sort of give an update on where we are. Right now, we're in the middle of a mail-in ballot proceeding. The original date for the election was last week, but because REI failed to fill out a form correctly and had also been telling staff that if they were testing positive for COVID, that they wouldn't be allowed to vote according to CDC guidelines. The NLRB basically changed it to a mail-in ballot according to the terms of the stipulation hearing. So right now, all the ballots have been, I believe, have been received by folks. It's hard to say because that's not something that we can really easily track. But I have gotten mine. A number of us have gotten ours and already mailed ours out. And so that's where we are. It's mail-in ballot time. I guess, do folks have any questions? Can I answer queries or things like that?
Yeah, Jules, I think people would like to know if this is only the Berkeley store, how many people this involves.
Sure.
And you'll have results, anything you can tell us, how that we can support you.
Sure. So this is only for the Berkeley store. It's going to be a store-by-store basis. Our Soho store, if folks did not know, passed their union election with a vote of 88-14. Our store has about 117, I think, was the count of votable employees. And so it involves that. But yes, it's just going to be a store by store for now. And if enough stores join, then maybe there's boundary for like more of a, what's the word that I want to, federal? No, but like an overarching like REI union. But right now it's just store to store. In terms of support, I honestly think the best support can be what I know some of you have already been doing because I've had conversations with you at the store, which is dropping by and talking about it with people. We have a lot of people who are in support of the idea, but are fearful of retaliation, fearful that it might be a bad idea. And the best thing that we can have right now is reassurance, especially from members of REI, that this is something that the community supports and that the members support. Just have honest conversations with people. If you've been in a union before, talk about your experience with it, because a lot of what REI has done in terms of sort of trying to union bust, at least at Berkeley, is disseminate like this cloud of doubt. And, you know, like urging people to ask questions and make sure they make a really informed decision in such a choking way. It's easy to present people with data and facts and ration, and REI opted not to do that. They opted to go the route of like, make sure you're doing your research, make sure you're doing, you know, you're making an informed decision, and like put a lot of fear into the idea of unionization and uncertainty. And like, all we need is conversation and upbeat. There are some hands, so I will happily take questions.
Okay, I'd like to, one of the questions somebody's written in the chat is what union you are a part of.
Got it. So we vetted more than a few. Our Soho store went with RWDSU, which is basically the version of the union that we joined, which is UFCW, the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, Local 5 chapter.
Okay, we're open for questions.
I had a couple questions.
Yeah.
First, just wondering, Jules, So the Berkeley Tenants Union is actually holding a membership meeting this Saturday at 2 to 4 p.m. And we've actually, I was the one who suggested to Carol that we try and get a speaker for this meeting. And we're wondering if you or someone else might be able to speak at that meeting as well. I'll DM you our contact information, because assuming that Saturday is not too late for folks to make a difference. So my other question is, so I know like with the Starbucks campaigns, like there's like some like low hanging fruit folks can do, like, you know, just go in and order a coffee with Union, like the name Union Yes, and that only takes a few minutes. Or for like somebody who's like feels socially awkward, that's something that they can do. Like, what are some of like the lowest hanging fruit stuff that we can do? Like if somebody like isn't like really supports unions, but doesn't like, you know, isn't that good with talking to people, that someone can do? Because I know folks like that who want to help, but don't feel like they can strike a conversation with a worker because like they feel, because they're personally socially awkward.
That's a harder order. And I might need to get back to you on that. I mean, even something like wearing, if you have a Union Yes pin, or I've seen folks come in wearing like shirts or hats that promote unionization. And so if you're not like, if you are socially awkward, I think that's a great way to sort of reach people, because we notice what people have on themselves. But there's not like I love the idea of like ordering a coffee with like the name Union Yes. But there's not, I don't know of something specific. You could also email our CEO. I can, or even like our store managers, if writing is a little bit more of a way that you can interact with people socially, because I understand the sort of fear that might come from awkward social engagement, especially with people you have never really met.
Yeah, we've just put the contact info for the REI CEO on the chat.
Great.
And if you want, if it's okay with you, Jules, I'll pass your information on after
Absolutely.
the meeting to Matthew.
Yeah, that's totally fine. And I don't know, just to answer the first question in terms of the Saturday meeting, I will bring it up with folks. I have a feeling that I am working, but if I am, I can try to just pop in for a short time. But yes, I would love, I'm sure we would love to chat.
We really appreciate you having been here.
Oh,
and please keep in touch. Okay.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
will
thanks
do.
a lot.
Yeah. Was there another? I saw Igor had his hand up as well. Was there more?
Hi, Jules.
Hello.
It's great to see you again, and you've been doing such an awesome job organizing. Just wanted to give a shout out to everything that you and all your brothers, sisters, and siblings are doing. REI, as I mentioned before to you, I think when we spoke, is 3 blocks away from me. So very excited about supporting a unionized workforce in my local community. I was wondering, what is the deadline by which we should endeavor to take all of these actions?
That's a great question. So the vote or the ballots are due back by the 25th of August. And there will be a live Zoom meeting, maybe Zoom, maybe some other meet, but a live reading of the ballots that I believe more can attend. I'll get back to folks on that if you want to sort of involve yourself in that. But basically it just allows both REI and the UFCW to contest various votes if they feel the need to be necessary. And then we'll find out that night whether or not we succeeded. So I would say within the next couple of weeks, certainly probably starting around the 20th, people, I would worry about ballots necessarily getting there. But yeah, for probably the next couple of weeks through, I would say through August 20th is a good sort of deadline, maybe the 20th, 21st.
Okay, I think we're gonna need to move on to all
Sure.
these candidates.
Yeah,
And please let us know as soon as you have any results or anything.
will do.
We send out newsletters and a lot of people out here want to know what's going on.
Awesome. Thanks so much
Okay.
for having me,
thank
guys.
you
I
so
really
much.
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Jules.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Okay, we have to get back. I love hearing about this kind of stuff happening locally. There's also a Starbucks locally organizing, and we may hear about that at the end of the meeting. But right now, we need to get back to our numerous candidates that are sitting here. The next person is going to be Victor Aguilar Jr., who is an incumbent, and he's running for his second term in San Leandro City Council. Victor, you want to tell us about yourself?
Hi, Carol. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Our Revolution East Bay. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Victor Aguilar Jr. I am running for re-election, and so far I have no challengers in my campaign. So hopefully it stays like that, and I will just automatically walk onto my next my second term as city council member for San Leandro. A little bit about me. I grew up in Los Angeles, California, have been involved in the labor movement, supporting labor's right, workers' rights, marching on the streets with Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, studied in Hawaii at Hawaii Pacific University, got a degree in political science, moved to the Bay Area where my husband and I fell in love, got married, and I decided to run for the San Leandro School Board. Was the first openly gay school board member, one of two, and also the first openly gay council member here in San Leandro. And during my time, I have been able to implement policy, approve affordable housing in the city. I've also been a part with a local movement to implement police oversight board here in San Leandro. Was able to work together with our city leaders to garner $300,000 to help fund that board and have police oversight. Also to implement audit of our police department. During that time, we also was able to get a new police chief and a new city manager. And so, we've been very successful, and I've also worked alongside with Liz Ortega to implement hazard pay for our workers during the pandemic, and been a staunch advocate. Unfortunately, during that time, I lost my mom to COVID. 9 of my family members contracted it. 8 of them survived. My mom passed away. So that helped, fuel my passion to make sure that we have testing facilities and folks are able to go and get vaccinations here in San Leandro, especially those in the underserved communities. I've also been active in pushing forth a policy to cap delivery fees during COVID times on DoorDash and Uber Eats, and was able to cap it at 15%. There are a lot of small businesses who are getting charged 30%, and it took a toll on their profits and their business. And there are many other things. I've ran on rent stabilization here in San Leandro, and unfortunately I don't have the support, but was able to put it on our priorities list and have progressive candidates run so that it's teed up when they are elected, so that we can put forth and implement rent stabilization here in our city. We've also been able to reimagine what policing looks like in our city. There are a lot of progressive values. I'm a corporate free candidate. In my last campaign, I spent 35 cents a voter, raised $5,000 from local folks, and beat an incumbent. So it's been a great time here on the council. There's a lot of work that I've been doing and a lot more that needs to be done. So I hope I am able to earn our Revolution East.
I think Victor.
We lost you for a minute, Victor. Are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Now we can, yeah.
Yeah, yes. Oh, Victor,
No.
you stalled out.
Can you hear me? Sorry, I'm in the marina, and my connection says it's fine. Let me turn off my camera.
We hear you now again.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Where did I cut off at?
I think you were asking us for our endorsement.
I was I was at the point I was well, I would love to have the endorsement. I don't think I was making the hard ask or support in that sense, but I was also asking if there were any questions.
Well,
I just
Matthew
saw
has a
an
question.
hand
Matthew,
flash.
go ahead.
Muted. Okay, great. I'm unmuted. Hi, Victor. Here's my question. So in early 2021, Guillermo Elenes was appointed to San Leandro's planning and zoning commission. But basically, he was basically pressured into resigning by the city council of San Leandro, which includes you, after it came out that he had put out the he had tweets that included the phrase "all cops are bastards." And I'm really concerned about the fact that, like, it's my understanding that you were one of the people who put him out for having.
You're cracking up, Matthew. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, you're really breaking up.
All right.
Yeah, Matthew, we're not catching what you're saying.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so let me start over. So in early 2021, Guillermo Elenes was appointed to the San Leandro Planning Commission. But after it came out that he had some tweets with anti-police sentiment, including the common phrase "all cops are bastards," he was pressured into resigning by the city council, including, I believe, yourself. I'm really concerned that that you participate in pressuring him out for very common anti-police sentiments, and that raises concerns for me, and I'm hoping that you could address those concerns.
Yeah, Matthew, thank you for asking that question. I think there's some more that's missing to that, that tweet. I think there was a comment also tweeted, even the gay ones, when he tweeted "all cops are bastards." And so, I think there was, a sense of homophobia. I had talked to Guillermo Elenes, and there have been, comments and rumors, and I had a conversation with him about that, and he said that he wasn't homophobic, and that he's just very, very vocal in that sense with pushing forth the tweets, and there was a lot of support in the community to push off Guillermo Elenes in that sense, and during that time, there was that with the gay comment, and so as somebody who is who identifies as part of that community, it raised some concerns, and so that's where I talked to him after that vote had happened, and he said that he was not homophobic, but he tried to defend what he meant by that even the gay cops are bastards as well. So for me, I think there was a decision there that I had to make, and I stand by it. So I'm trying to understand where this is coming from, and if the decision was, if you're trying to say that I'm not progressive in that sense, I think that was something that I think it was the right decision that I made to put forth in that sense.
Okay, do we have another question? And then we're going to have to move to the next candidate.
Quick question, Victor. That's a fantastic position, not having a challenger. That's a beautiful thing. I've always considered you a progressive star in the East Bay because of policy and because of action. And I'm just wondering, what are the prospects of, say, a San Leandro Green New Deal in these upcoming seasons?
So the prospects of the Green New Deal, there's a lot
On the
of
local
push.
level.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you, yes.
The prospects of the Green New Deal in San Leandro, the progressive policies is, we push forth to make sure that we have electric vehicles by 2030, and then that gas-powered vehicles are not sold in San Leandro. We're also pushing forward to make sure that all new buildings do not have gas in San Leandro. That's something that I'm advocating for, to make sure that we see that, and with making sure that we have fleets of vehicles that do not emit CO2, so that we're aligning our public vehicles and our police vehicles to make sure that we have cleaner energy and that we're promoting that here in the city of San Leandro.
Victor, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Victor, thank you so much. I know it was a little difficult for you to be here because you're way in the South Bay having a dinner. But we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. And thank you so much for those questions. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Victor, for being here. Our next speaker, our next candidate is someone that we endorsed back in 2018. She is a founder of the Safe Return Project. And I don't think I'm telling tales out of school, but she's a consultant for Richmond's Green New Deal that is being implemented right now. Like I said, we endorsed her in 2018, I think it was, and into Antioch, where she is city council member. We sent in 14,000 text messages, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's tremendous for Antioch. She is courageous. She is outspoken. She has put many important issues at the forefront in Antioch. We're very pleased to have with us Tamisha Walker, Councilmember Walker.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mark. I wish I don't think I was even considering running for office in 2018. It was 2020, which was an amazing and challenging year for us all, right? Yeah. So my name is Tamisha Torres-Walker, and I am currently the city councilwoman in the city of Antioch for District 1, and I am running for re-election. I'm running for re-election because I care about this district. I've only been in office for 18 months. And in this short amount of time, I've been able to roll up my sleeves, get out in the community, and figure out where the direct needs and challenges are for our residents. When I first ran for city council in Antioch, I knew that there were folks whose voices have not been heard. And after this past 18 months in office, I can tell you that that is absolutely true. There have been communities who have been left behind. This race is really critical because it's not just to get me reelected, it's to reelect a candidate that is clearly committed to community, to accountability, and to transparency. I'm the only radical progressive in this race. There are 4 other opponents. Joy Mott would be one who was the original council member before we went to districts. And she was a council member and also previously on the school board, of which she was not reelected. Diane Gibson Gray, who was a school board member who was not reelected to the school board in 2020. Gabriel McAnano, who ran for mayor, who did not win, and I think actually placed 4th or 5th in that race, is running in this district to represent residents in District 1, and a gentleman by the name of Gregory Stornett, which I don't know a lot about, but I know that he's a blue collar worker and he grew up here in Antioch. And so I'm not a lifelonger. I've only been in Antioch 9 years, but I will tell you that in this district, some of our most vulnerable communities, like the Sycamore area alone, has a 75% unemployment rate. The majority of those unemployed in that neighborhood are Black women. It is also the neighborhood with the most young people who have early adverse childhood experiences. And it is also a community that for over 30 years has been overlooked and has experienced crime and violence. The FBI put out a report in early 21 saying that the Sycamore Corridor was one of the most violent neighborhoods in the state of California. And that is here in the city of Antioch. And so I've been working really hard on the council. I have fought for a Human Rights and Racial Equity Commission to address racial equity issues in the city of Antioch. I have fought to establish a civilian oversight body for our police department. I worked really hard to create a Department of Public Safety and Community Resources so we could reimagine public safety here in the city of Antioch. I have worked really hard to increase public-private partnerships here in the city, strengthening the city's relationships with nonprofits and philanthropy to meet the needs of our most vulnerable residents. I've been able to pull down $1.8 million of Community Violence Prevention Act funding from the state of California to address gun violence in some of our most vulnerable neighborhoods. I've also worked in partnership with probation because many of you may or may not know I'm the director of the Safe Return Project as well, which is focused on criminal legal reform and mass liberation to keep people out of jails and prisons. And so I, as a formerly incarcerated individual myself, have a relationship with probation and was able to bring down $300,000 in Juvenile Crime Prevention Act funding here to the city of Antioch to keep young people out of jails, out of prisons, and in our community with resources. I've co-authored the Mayor's Apprenticeship Program for at-risk TAY youth. That's young adults who are approaching, who are going on their own and they need job opportunities to be able to get them ready for the workforce. And the list, the list goes on, and that's just in 18 months. And so I know my opponent that, I think one of my opponents might say they only had 2 years. And I would say to that, I also had 2 years. And in that 2 years, I've been able to do more on this city council than most council members who have been here for a decade. And if I receive your endorsement and the support from the community, I can have another 4 years to continue to drive forward our initiatives for radical progressiveness in the city of Antioch.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Any questions for Tamisha? So I don't see any questions. Shy crowd. Tamisha.
I won't break. I promise.
You've been so outspoken about police brutality. What has the community in Antioch, how has it responded to a lot of those very strident critiques? And what are the winning arguments that you make to voters in Antioch about these issues?
The issues around policing in Antioch are very challenging. One, because the city of Antioch has not been able to scale its police department to what has been needed since 2014. The population has grown 75% in the last 15 years. You went from an 80%, like 80,000 people to a little over 115,000. And so I get people's challenges with public safety and wanting to make sure that we have a police department that is meeting the needs of our community. But unfortunately, we have a police department that has done very little work around implicit bias and very little work around being equipped to address the needs of very diverse communities. We also have a city whose budget has historically been 65 to 75% going to policing and not to meet the needs of the community. I've talked to a lot of residents who support me and wish that they had the voice and the platform that I did to speak about the challenges around police brutality, harassment, state-sanctioned violence they've experienced here in the city. They appreciate me being outspoken, but they aren't as outspoken as I am. The people who are the loudest are not the majority, they are the minority, and I'm sure of that. I'm also very clear that I'm the candidate that's able to bring this police department to clear accountability and transparency while building some strong relationships with the community.
Thank you for that. We do have a question from Paola. Paola, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you for your bravery, really. So you just said that the population has jumped by like 25,000 residents, basically. So does that mean that housing has increased in the area and there's been development in the area so people have enough housing? So just curious about the budget for the city, wouldn't all these new buildings be paying more city taxes and city property and all those issues? So is it that the city just can't balance properly? I'm kind of curious. Thanks.
Yeah, actually, we have more empty units in the city of Antioch than we have filled, believe it or not. There is this discrimination when it comes to renters. Also during the pandemic, lots of people were evicted and put out on the streets, even during the moratorium, a statewide moratorium on evictions. We have developed some affordable housing, but I wouldn't say all, as most of the development has been median income housing. There's a commitment to continue to develop affordable housing. And what we do, we have over 350 unhoused folks on the streets right now. So the focus has been what type of transitional housing or housing needs to be developed here in the city to meet the needs of those folks so that we can get them off the streets and into programs and services and into permanent housing options that they can afford. I will say that, there doesn't seem to be a commitment to develop more housing. I think it's Brentwood had an opportunity to have some affordable, I believe, income housing built there, and they, missed out on that opportunity. I don't know if it was NIMBYism, but Antioch might want to consider a partnership like that to make sure that we can provide more housing, but also what does the access to affordable housing look like for our folks?
If you allow me, just want to share that the city of Berkeley just this month passed a ballot measure, a measure that's going to go on the ballot regarding vacancy taxes. And we have a lot of vacant units in Berkeley so maybe you want to look to Berkeley and what they're doing. So maybe you guys can think about that.
I definitely support vacancy taxes. I don't think landlords should be able to hold on to vacant properties and hike up the rents as the market goes up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's see. Let me just say, we've still got 4 candidates, and the order we're going to do this in is first will be Jamin Purcell, and then Nikki Fortuna Boss.
Yay.
Third will be Mary Lee Smith, and we'll finish with Laura Nakamura, just so everybody, hopefully there won't be any changes in this. Okay, so we're ready to move on. Are you ready, Jamin? Am I saying your name right?
It's Jamin.
Jamin, okay. I think Mark's going to introduce you, but welcome.
Sure. So Jamin is running for Richmond City Council District 4. He is the candidate endorsed by the Richmond Progressive Alliance. The Richmond Progressive Alliance, we have partnered with them on so many issues, and we've always been together in the struggle, fighting for an East Bay for working people, for an economic and environmental future. And Jamin Purcell is in a great legacy running in Richmond. And I can't wait to hear his vision for the future of Richmond, how he's going up against opponents and the challenges that face the city. Thank you so much for being with us, Jamin.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate everybody's time. So let me just start off by introducing myself. My name is Jamin Purcell. I use he, they pronouns. I was born in Anchorage, Alaska. I was raised primarily in California. I moved to Richmond 12 years ago, 12 and a half. And I've lived here with my husband since then. This is the longest I've ever lived somewhere. So I put in deep roots. I originally got involved with the Richmond Progressive Alliance back in 2014, where I worked on Javanka Beckel's campaign in order to get her onto the city, get her reelected to the city council. And I'm a founding board member of Richmond Rainbow Pride, as well as one of the steering committee members of the Richmond Shoreline Alliance. So why I'm running is because I have a very, my background is in political science. I have a master's in around policy and regulation. I have a really deep passion to try and push forward progressive politics, in particular in my area, because this is the first time having a district election. We have no incumbents. So this is going to set the tone for this district for it going into the future. And in particular, we're kind of more of a purple district for the place for here in Richmond. We have just some conservative elements generally in the older parts of our community. But, you know, in the suburbs, they're typically dismissed as being reactionary and unable to support progressive policy. However, this area has been experiencing exciting demographic shifts. And as young families and immigrants have increasingly discovered Richmond's appeal, I want to make sure that we are looking forward to the future of the city of Richmond and being able to look for trying to support those young families in those communities that are out in my district in order to be able to make sure that we continue moving Richmond in the right direction of a more progressive future. I guess I will open it up to questions, or unless there's anything else you would like to know.
Thank you, Jamin, and that's absolutely right. Richmond is becoming younger and younger. It's younger people are moving in, younger families. First question is from Cordell. Cordell, go ahead.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Mark?
I can.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we hear you.
Yes. Jamin, if you were to be elected on the city council, how will you address the staffing shortage in city departments? That was the only question.
Okay. Well, I will start off by saying that I am only one of two candidates currently that is in support of Measure U. Measure U was voted on in 2020 with a 73.5% support for it, and in one of the race in a race that was one of the largest responses and had the largest turnout of voters in decades. And Measure U is a progressive tax that is able to on businesses on their gross receipts, and I want to put that money specifically towards filling out a lot of the positions. We have over 130 vacant positions within the city, and I want to be able to make sure that we have not only adequate staffing, but we're actually able to fulfill the quality of life that we have had in the past in Richmond, but has been sorely neglected because of budgetary issues. And so I want to make sure that we are providing those good union jobs and trying to provide the services that people expect from a city instead of constantly having to push them off because of lack of staffing and capacity issues. And to answer Kabir's question in the chat, my opponent currently is Sahela Bana. She's a very nice, and I say this, that she is a very nice lady who is very smart and she cares about her community. She does not support Measure U. She does not, she is supported by Tom Butt, and she has a very specific viewpoint that she brings to our district, which I don't think is as progressive as mine. And nor do I think that it is looking at the future of Richmond.
Next question goes to Paola.
Hello. Could you share a little bit about the demographics of your district, and if you have any data about the shift in the population on the numbers, and so the numbers shift and then the demographics? Thank you.
Sure. Give me 1 second. I can pull that up actually. So primarily our demographics of our district, we have a very large electorate of voters. We have potential voters. We have about 12,470 some. They have a very high turnout as well. It's primarily Democrats. But we have a large portion, over 1,000 of those are Republicans, but then we also have another 2,500 which are undeclared, and then a kind of a mix of Greens and American Independents. But as far as in the last election, we had kind of, when we looked at that spread of who voted for blue versus red, there was a kind of a more of a purple than any other part of the Bay Area, which is quite unnerving. So I think that people were brought in by that. Now, as far as the demographics, it is predominantly white. And then after that is, we have a 17% Latino. We have something around, I think, 10 or 12% Black, and then Asian after that. But those numbers have been shifting. We've been having greater numbers of particularly West Asians moving into our into our area as well, which I am excited about.
Well, I hope that you're able to do some multilingual campaigning to reach those people who are voters, so they're aware of you. So good luck. Thanks.
I appreciate that. And I will say that our staff has been really trying to make sure that I'm accompanied when I've been canvassing with people who are capable of speaking some of those languages. We've been really lucky to find a number of Spanish speakers to help me out while I was canvassing, to be able to make sure that my message was conveyed well. And we're continuing to work on that with a greater expansing of the languages that we're trying to bring in.
Jamin Purcell, running for Richmond City Council, District 4. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for representing the Richmond Progressive Alliance. Really appreciate it. Carol,
Yeah,
over to you.
Thank you so much, Chairman.
Thank you.
I know that there was a mix-up and you were supposed to be here previously, so thank you for not giving up on us.
You know, sometimes the revolution comes slowly, but you always have to show up.
Okay, so moving along. I know you all know who our next person, Nikki Fortuna Boss.
Yay!
She's like a superstar in Oakland. We endorsed her 4 years ago. Hopefully our members will vote to endorse her again. She's made some amazing changes in Oakland in the time she's been in office, and I'm going to let her tell you about them. Welcome, Nikki.
Good evening. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Mark. It's good to be in the Zoom room with all of you, and I am really grateful for our Revolution East Bay's endorsement 4 years ago to help win us a seat on the Oakland City Council. So I have been representing and serving out my first term on the Oakland City Council in District 2, which is probably the most diverse neighborhood in Oakland, with the largest API population. I'm the first Filipino American to be an elected official in the City Council. And the area includes the San Antonio neighborhood, East Lake, Chinatown, and Grand Lake. And a few of you know me. You know, I never thought I would run for office. Oakland and this particular district has been my home for 25 years, and I actually got my start organizing sweatshop workers in Oakland Chinatown about 25 years ago, and that really built the fire in my belly for social justice. And most of my work has been as a volunteer and then later as a staff person of nonprofit organizations, which have all been coalitions that bring together labor, community, environmentalists, immigrant rights, women, and other sectors to build power and to work for social justice. And I've really, over the past 3 years, grounded my work in the values I have as a social justice organizer. You know, I do want to say that these are really hard times that we are in. You know, for those of us who are serving as electeds our first term, these past 2 years or past almost 3 years have been hard because of the pandemic, the recession, rising anti-Asian hate, as well as the national racial reckoning following many, many more murders of Black men and women in particular. And so even with these hard times, I'm really proud that I've been able to drive forward an agenda that's about housing as a human right, safe, healthy neighborhoods, and investing in our communities. And I'm doing this work with the movement that I've been a part of. And so in our first year in office, I'm really proud we created a $14 million program to help low-income tenants purchase their homes with land trusts. That's a partnership with ACE Action and the Oakland Community Land Trust, which we are going to be continuing to push forward. In our second year, we passed the state's strongest local COVID eviction moratorium, as well as the state's strongest grocery worker hazard pay ordinance. And then in our third year, I began serving as council president and passed a historic budget that deeply invests in reimagining and transforming safety. So $17 million in violence prevention, and that number keeps going up in terms of the investment, and $15 million in macro, which is our alternative crisis response program in the fire department that is already taking 911 calls. And then finally, I'm really proud that just in the past couple months, my promise around public land for public good is becoming reality. There's a parcel of contested city-owned land near Lake Merritt that I have been able to convert to dignified housing for about 80 unsheltered neighbors. And over the past month or so, we just moved forward not one, but two 100% affordable housing projects on that site. There's a number of measures I'm really proud to sponsor on the ballot, which I'm happy to talk more about, including a progressive corporate business tax. And I'm really looking forward to serving another term to keep fighting for an Oakland for all of us that really centers and cares for our people. I'm endorsed by the Wellstone Democratic Renewal Club, the East Bay Democratic Socialists of America, Oakland Rising Action, Asian Pacific Environmental Network Action, the Alameda Labor Council, and many other organizations and leaders. And I would be so honored to have the endorsement again of our revolution to be able to serve a second term. Thank you.
I would just like to mention that I love that you have an Our Revolution shirt on today.
Well, Carol, let me just say this, and I do want to hear your questions. Again, I never thought I would run for office, so I kind of had to scramble to find candidate trainings. And it just so happens that Carol Fife, who is a friend of mine even before she joined the council, she and I went to DC for a training that was sponsored by Our Revolution. And yeah, it was really helpful and inspiring as well.
All right. Okay, we'll open questioning now or comments.
I'll start with
Okay, you want to start?
well, Councilmember Bass, first I have to say, all around Oakland, from Chinatown to the Flatlands, I've never known an elected leader that everyone feels like they know you. They think that you're a friend. The warmth that people talk about you. Oh, I know Nikki. Oh yeah, she's great. Oh, everyone feels that they know you, and that's indicative of that you're from the community. That's
good to hear. Thank you.
So my question is, Oakland is dealing with so many challenges right now. And it seems like we're always dealing with the challenge of right now. What challenges do you see coming that you see emerging just on the horizon? I hope that's not too nebulous a question.
We have some big challenges. We definitely have some big challenges. And I'll start off by saying that I'm really proud of the work that I've done as a council member and on our budget as a council president. You all are probably fully aware that, like our national system, we have multiple branches of government that if they don't work together are not going to create the change that we need. I do believe that in my role as a council member, I've pushed forward policy and budgeting to move forward a progressive agenda. I am really looking forward to a new mayor that can hopefully align and work with the council because we have an unprecedented homelessness crisis. That is one of the core things that I am very, very concerned about. And, it's what was my priority when I ran for office, and it's still very much my priority. And then, of course, public safety is a huge issue. I'm proud to have done the work to reimagine safety. I am going to continue to lead that effort. I appointed Councilmember Fife to co-chair our public safety committee, very intentionally so that she could also lead that effort. And, it's a time when many people, like we heard earlier from my colleague in Antioch, it's a hard issue because a lot of people are scared. There are real safety issues, and I empathize with how hard things are for people who are being victimized by crime. And I am trying, because our revolution is about organizing, I am really trying to build more of an infrastructure in my second term that will meet people where they're at. They may think that the solution is more police officers and even more investment in policing. And we have to really figure out how to reach a broader constituency so that we're really pushing.
You froze up here.
Uh-oh.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Okay. I'll try to wrap up here. Again, as an organizer, I really think we need to meet people where they're at if we're going to build a stronger, deeper, bigger progressive base and around public safety. I do think that we have to figure out policing that is accountable and effective and efficient, and deeply invest, and I'm proud we're doing this in Oakland, in alternative crisis response, like our fire department teams that are answering 911 calls that are non-criminal, non-violent, investing in violence prevention, and of course, jobs, housing, education, healthcare. We know investing in those root causes at every level of government is going to shift things. That is our biggest problem. And I would say for me, one of the reasons I am glad that East Bay DSA is endorsing me and will be canvassing every week with me is that we need to do some deep organizing to help people understand what the solutions are that will shift because our safety net is so broken.
Right.
Okay,
Thank
we
you for
got a
that.
lot of questions here. First, let's hear from Joaquin.
Oh, okay. Am I muted?
No, we hear you.
Sorry. Sort of the big question seems to be Oakland A's Coliseum and all that. And so I know there's a lot of tricky, contingencies and who knows what. But do you have any insight into that, or what would be your position so far?
Thanks for the question, Joaquin. That is a big issue. I would certainly prefer that we focus on housing, jobs, and other issues that really help to address our core problems. Nonetheless, as the A's are negotiating with our city administration, I've made it very clear. I have put this into the term sheet. I have put it into our resolution that we passed earlier this year, that before the council takes any action on the Howard Terminal project, certain things have to come to us first. That includes a clear financial plan that makes sure that taxpayers won't be on the hook like we have been in the past. It means a meaningful community benefits agreement that addresses the concerns I've been hearing from communities in West Oakland, Jack London, Chinatown, which I represent, everything from environmental issues to traffic issues. It also means that there is a real plan and funding for affordable housing, deeply affordable housing, as well as, of course, making sure that our port will continue to remain viable. Not only that, but grow. So I am committed to making sure that we don't even take the vote as council president until those things are clear. They've been addressed so that we can make an informed decision and make sure this is not going to be a losing deal for Oaklanders, our residents, and our taxpayers.
Okay, thank you, Joaquin. Next, we have a question from Vanessa.
Yeah, hi. Quick question. It looks like you haven't yet publicly signed the No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge, and I'm just wondering if you plan to sign it.
Yes, Vanessa, I believe I signed it in 2018. I will sign it again. So if you don't mind emailing it to me, I put my email in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, you're not listed on the site, and it's usually a pledge for good. So if you did,
okay,
you got registered.
Okay, maybe it was a pledge that Sunflower had sent to me, but please do send it. I will sign it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. We do have a question here in the chat. Who are your opponents?
So, so far, there is one person who has pulled papers, which to run in District 2. And they have until Friday to file, and that is someone by the name of Harold Lowe.
Okay. Okay, we got a lot of questions here. I want to get first people that haven't asked as many. Igor, would you like to ask her a question?
Yeah, thank you so much, Council President. Thank you for your leadership, and I'm looking forward to supporting your leadership in the coming term. I'm sure this is a question that you're getting a lot these days, given the somewhat unfortunate developments around dealing with parties to what everyone had hoped would be a settlement agreement around putting a stop on the transport of coal through the port of Oakland, walking away from the settlement negotiation. What is your position on the transport to the coal of Oakland bulk materials if they were to include coal or other fossil fuels?
So I believe I signed a no coal pledge. That is the clear position that I have. I think that it's also clear that it's the position of the entire city council from the press release that our city attorney put out in terms of the framework that guided or is guiding settlement negotiations. So I do not support the transport of coal or petcoke materials through West Oakland and including on that at that terminal.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Paola, would you like to ask it? And then we've got to move on.
Yes, thank you very much, and congratulations, Council President, for all your hard work and all the positive outcomes. So thrilled to support you. I have a question about staffing in the city of Oakland. The city of Berkeley has a lot of staffing problems. We have a lot of contractors doing jobs that staff people would do, but there's a shortage of staffing for whatever reasons. Is that the problem in Oakland as well for staffing? And how has that impacted some of the efforts that you've tried to get forward? Thank you.
Yes, we have a real staffing crisis. There are vacancy rates at 20%, sometimes even higher for key departments like Public Works. You know, when people complain that our trash isn't getting picked up, it's because the administration has not been able to fill vacant positions that are budgeted. Same with Department of Transportation, you know, not enough engineers to design traffic safety improvements. It's incredibly frustrating. With this particular budget, we did add 8 human resources positions. We also were able to bargain a contract with our public sector workers. One of the best contracts, our miscellaneous workers, 10-1 and 21, got 5% raises this year, and we'll get that next year. So I am hopeful that the administration will do a much better job with hiring and retention of open budgeted positions with both the HR capacity and with the improved COLAs and benefits. And, you know, I have personally been really watching out for contracting out. It's not something that I support. And I think we have to really figure out how we have more of a commitment among everyone across our government with making sure that our government is doing its job, which is, you know, really providing city services to meet human need.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm afraid we're going to have to move on. And thank you, Nikki, for coming here. We should have results in around a week from our members' election. You know, hopefully you will be reelected and keeping up the good work. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, now we've got to move on. It's getting later and later here.
Carol, is this the last candidate?
No,
Uh-oh.
this is Mary Lee Smith and then Laura Nakamura. So Mary Lee Smith is running for a district in Berkeley that does not have an incumbent, which is a real strange thing because we always have people that are still running and still running. There seems to be 3 or 4 people running. We always look at very carefully at the applications to see who the people are that really have our values. And Mary Lee Smith is a longtime activist. I think I'll let her tell you more about herself and why she is running. Welcome, Mary Lee.
Thanks so much. It's a real honor to be invited. I am running for Berkeley City Council District 8, and it is an open seat, which is hard to come by in Berkeley. And I'm very excited for the opportunity to bring a progressive voice to District 8. I am a lawyer. I've worked for over a dozen years as a civil rights litigator for people with disabilities. I'm also, for the past 5 or so years, I've been more of a community organizer around racial justice issues. I've been working with organizations like Showing Up for Racial Justice. I'm also a mom. I have a 10 and an 8-year-old. They're in public school. And so I actually feel like that gives me a window as to what is happening on the ground in Berkeley sometimes. I can see what the lack of affordable housing, for example, is doing for hiring public school teachers. And in fact, that kind of segues into some of key priorities for me include building affordable housing. And that is not by building more and more market rate housing. It is by focusing entirely on how we can create more affordable housing to bring back our teachers, to bring back city employees, and so on. Other key issues that I'm interested in would be issues of process and transparency in our city government, and also our unhoused population. I'm a mental health commissioner, and I believe we should be doing more of mental health focus to addressing this issue. And finally, I think in an email I got, I was asked to share a little bit about why I'm running. And actually that's not really driven by policy as much as maybe my ideals. I was born and raised in apartheid South Africa by parents who were in the anti-apartheid movement. And I witnessed people literally giving their lives for a voice in their government. And I have been watching now for, it feels like years, seeing people turn our backs on our government, believing that what we think doesn't matter and won't make a difference. And I've been talking to folks in Berkeley and feeling this at the local level too. And I can't see us give up. I feel like we can have input and ownership over what happens in our government. And in Berkeley, I believe we can get that input and ownership by empowering our community. And so I am running to empower our community. I think community is really powerful. This is what I've sort of discovered in my community organizing. I think we can learn how to care for our own needs, whether that's emergency planning or social belonging, but also together we can demand, that we can have more decision-making processes and policy-making power from leaders and have our needs met. And so that's part of why I'm running is I want to have our community see that they can have ownership in their government. And a lot of folks have asked me, well, what can one progressive city council member really do? How many are there? How many progressive city council members will there really even be in the city council? And I tell them, you don't have to worry. It's not just me, because I'll have the backing of my whole community behind me. And maybe that's very idealistic, but it is in fact why I run. I want to empower our communities so that we can create the Berkeley that we want. And it would mean an awful lot if I could get the endorsement of our revolution, and I am open to any questions at this time.
Okay, I see two hands that are up from the previous participant, I believe. Joaquin, do you have a question for Mary Lee?
Oh, no, sorry, my hand wasn't up.
Okay, Paola.
Actually, I guess I just raised my hand. I do have a question. Thank you, Mary Lee, for running. We need progressives. Can you share what your thoughts are about Berkeley's rent stabilization and eviction for good cause ordinance, where you do stand on rent control? Thank you.
Yes. So I am a landlord, which automatically, people think that you can't be in favor of tenants' rights, but I am 110% in favor of tenants' rights. And I am also in favor of repealing Costa-Hawkins as well. I believe that, as it is set up right now, it runs wild and allows price gouging, and it is not the way that housing prices should be established. I believe that we definitely need to be extending the protections to a lot more of the units than are currently covered. And so that's sort of where I stand on the I guess, rent stabilization. And I think the other component to it is that I feel like there are landlords out there that I would be interested to see if there could be more work done with landlords. And maybe that's kind of risky and not progressive, but I do think that sometimes we put ourselves in a binary that doesn't need to be a binary. And where an example of this might be for rental assistance. For example, I was talking to someone at the rent board about this, and this is one way in which we are trying to prevent, with housing insecurity, trying to prevent the next step of unhoused families, unhoused individuals, and so on. And so, but part of the problem is actually communicating to some of these individuals, these tenants who are experiencing housing insecurity. And so there's a question of, could we not use landlords in this situation? Because many landlords, the interests are actually the same. No landlord, there's not an interest in evicting if it's unnecessary. I don't know. It's just, I think it's an idea, and if it's going to help a situation in which someone is not evicted and we can avoid this, ongoing housing insecurity, something I would look at. And so I think just in general, my approach in this situation is that I'm both pro-tenant, but I also think that I would be willing to look at the situation as to, are there any other benefits that we can get out of this situation, just having the perspective that I do as a landlord.
Oh, great. I hope you to also bring that perspective. I mean, we have a lot of people aging in place, and that's a problem, tenants aging in place. So thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question, and it may be the final, no, we have two more. Okay, the next one is going to come from Elisa Victory, who has not asked a question yet.
Thanks, Carol. Good evening, or hope y'all are having a great August. Thank you for running. My question is really about your stances on public safety, specifically policing, but also addressing root causes of violence and crime that are not just funding more police and police staffing. I say that because Berkeley has undergone its own reimagining public safety process and has various proposals. Some have been stalled, where you want more research or political will, but I'm also seeing now, just this past month or so, a lot of Berkeley electeds are coming out endorsing Pamela Price's opponent for our county district attorney, who is the most progressive in running on change. And so I just want to know what your views are, if you have specific plans or proposals to address policing in Berkeley, especially even around the People's Park removal that we've all been seeing circulating?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot there, but let me just start with the reimagining public safety process. So I was involved in that, and that's what I was very much involved, especially in the creation of a non-police response to mental health, substance abuse, and homeless issues. And so that is what is called the specialized care unit now, and that will go into effect, hopefully, in November. And the Mental Health Commission, which I sit on, is actually a part somewhat of implementation of that. So that has been great seeing that happen. And it is great to see those 3 populations being removed from necessarily receiving an automatic police response. And I could go into the weeds, but I'm trying not to. But we're also dealing with dispatch also, just to try to figure out how we prevent these calls going to the police by accident, you know. And I would also say, though, that in general, my position on public safety is that we should maintain the tract of reimagining public safety. And what, for me, that a big part of that is equity. Equity meaning equal outcomes, so that any public safety process that doesn't yield an equal outcome is a problem. So that's why we first started with like mental illness, right? Because the policing wasn't yielding an equal outcome. And now that's why we should move to the next step in Berkeley, which is the Berk.dot. And that is because traffic citations are really discriminatory in Berkeley. And so we shouldn't have the police enforcing traffic infractions. We should have this independent organization, the Berkeley Department of Transportation, I guess they're going to call it. They should be enforcing it. And I'm in favor of that, and I will continue to advocate for that. That is sort of further study. We'll see what's happening. There's certain, they need to get certain authority from the state on that as well. So, but again, as a city council member, that'll be something that I'm on and continually, you know, wanting to see go forward, because that again fits with equity, and that's what I'm going to be pushing for throughout public safety. And the final part of public safety for me is going to be violence prevention, intervention, and restorative justice. Violence prevention. That's going to be recognizing that we shouldn't be shocked that we have property crime in my district, for example, District 8, because there's massive income inequity. And, you know, I think we have to accept that, but then we need to recognize that there are things that we can be doing. And so we should be sponsoring the city. I mean, we should be sponsoring programs like Off the Streets, on the Fields. We should be putting money into this that keeps Berkeley youth off the streets, so they're not recruited into many of these crime rings and gangs that then participate in some of this property crime. We should also then continue to fund Ceasefire, which has just started, and that's sort of like your crime intervention. And I think finally, we should look at restorative justice, so that when people are getting out of these organizations and turning away from crime, we don't have a system where crime the charges catch up with them. And we need to be taking a look at how we can, as a city, I think, allow people to move away from a life of crime. And so, yes, that is what I'm looking at, and I've definitely thought a lot about it, and will definitely also be bringing people along. I know that my district, you know, I'm not coming in a place where we're talking about defund the police or anything like that. That's not what people are at. But I am willing to talk about, you know, violence prevention, violence intervention, and restorative justice. These are things that we should be in support of. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, we have time for one more very, very brief question. And before that, I would like to know, who are your opponents, just very briefly?
Yes, Mark Humbert, who has been endorsed by the previous city council member, which was Lori Drosky, and Mari, I'm totally blanking on her last name. She's also quite progressive, and she was on the rent board in the last slate. So those are the two that I know of.
Okay, Matthew, you can ask a question, and remember, we're on a time thing here right now.
Okay, cool. I'm going to try and keep this quick. So, Mary, I've had the chance to read your questionnaire. Everything looks really good, including on housing. But I feel like a concern myself and other tenants' rights activists are going to have is I've been told, including by people who support you and who know I'm a tenants' rights activist, that you're a, I guess, medium-sized landlord. Like you own a few buildings as a landlord, and so I guess folks like myself are going to be kind of wary to be able to vouch for you. And so, what would you say to assuage our concerns beyond like what you've already put in the questionnaire, like about Costa Hawkins and the Ellis Act?
Right. That's that's a really good question. I think the way I came to became a landlord was bought buildings as a form of investment for my daughters to pay for college. We do not see these as something that has to, be cash cows making a ton of money. That's not. And I don't see that in any way for any sort of building. And I think if it's viewed as that, that's a problem because it's housing. It's something that is so important that it can't be viewed that way. I feel like it's sort of something very separate and that needs to be protected. And so I think that would be sort of how it is viewed. First is an important part of that. And I think second, just my experience with my tenants. Tenants are not commodities to me, or they're very much human to me. I know all of my tenants by name, and that's not to sort of belittle them in some way, but it's also just to add a sense of humanity to this, and also the way I work. I think this goes to the same theme of taking it outside of the business, just like a pure business. I have a tenant in one of my apartments. He gets his funding from 3 different agencies. He has a disability, and he had this disability after he had moved in. And yeah, the checks come at 3 different times in the month, and he was very concerned. And the point is that he is a human and he requires shelter, and we get paid what we need whenever. And so I think that's the bottom line about how I approach this is that it's not I'm not doing him a service or anything, but it's just the way it should be, right? Is housing is something that everybody needs. I get paid what I need. Yes, it happens at 3 different points in the month, but there shouldn't be a problem. And so I guess that's how I see housing and the landlord-tenant relationship should be handled. And that is certainly how my relationship with my tenants are handled, is that yes, it is a way for me to operate a business and to make money, but there's a humanity that is a part of it. And it is a special type of relationship because this is housing. And that's the best way I can describe it. And I feel like it's almost sacred in a way. Like if you, as a landlord, if you're given that trust, to provide housing for someone, you need to have that kind of respect. So that's my approach.
Mary Lee Smith, running for Berkeley City Council. Thank you for stepping up and running. We need more progressives standing up to run. What an exciting race this is going to be. This is going to be a very exciting race. So thank you so much for being here, Mary Lee. Thank you. Thank you so much. Our final candidate, our last but far from least. This next candidate is a friend of ours. And my goodness, members of the community have been pushing her to run for office for years. And we were all certainly cheering when we heard the news that she would be running. She is a co-founder of the Concord Communities Alliance, which is modeled somewhat after the Richmond Progressive Alliance. I know that she is selfless, she's committed, and she's for real. So what is she doing in politics? Let's find out. Running for Concord City Council, please welcome Laura Nakamura. Laura.
Thank you, Mark. And before we go on, I have to put this out there on social media somehow. Here it is.
Excellent.
Okay. I have signed the fossil fuel pledge for no money. I don't believe that my opponent has. And I will be making sure that gets finalized with that organization. I am Laura Nakamura. I am running for Concord City Council's District 5, but this is about all of Concord. Concord is where I have lived for over 30 years. It's where I've raised my children, and it's where I've launched my career in healthcare. I do cardiac ultrasound for Children's Hospital in Oakland. What I've seen during my time in Concord is a great decline in affordability, sustainability, livability, and accountability. And I know that we can do better than the status quo here in Concord. We are falling behind in these areas because policymakers consistently seem to place narrow commercial interests ahead of the interests of residents for the common good. The biggest issue facing us in Concord and the region is the development at the former Concord Naval Weapons Station site. And we are in the midst of an exclusive negotiating agreement with some really questionable actors, the Cinos and Phil Tagami of CCIG, which many of you from the Oakland area know. I am a healthcare worker. I'm also a union member with NUHW. I'm also a social justice advocate who cares deeply about the issues of equity that affect families, working families in Concord. And as a union steward, I know the importance of standing up for my coworkers and the community we serve to fight for what's right and for what is fair. My approach is going to be a three-pronged approach. I will listen to the voices, and that is what's been missing. I will listen to the voices in the community and incorporate what I'm hearing into constructive change. I will actively collaborate with our city's diverse stakeholders, including partners in labor and the progressive movement. And my goal is to engage people, build bridges, foster accountability and transparency in our city government so that we can all live here and thrive. Working families and the most vulnerable need to be the highest priority in Concord. And we need to be building progressive green solutions to transit to improve the quality of life for all in Concord. I support the Complete Streets Initiative and making parking or public transit free because this will benefit working families. Affordable housing, sustainable development are achievable goals. They just need the energy and the focus. And these are things that should be created with good permanent union jobs. All of this will improve the quality of life for Concord's diverse residents. We need equitable solutions in Concord that will uplift everyone. The status quo in Concord may be working for some, but it's not working for everyone. And that's why I want to represent Concord's 5th district. And this is why I'm here seeking our Revolution East Bay's endorsement and your help. I really need people to know that this is a grassroots campaign. There's no money from fossil fuels. There's no money from corporate interests. That's for other people in Concord to be doing. What we're up against in Concord is that the progressive movement needs to be strengthened because there are a lot of special interests in Concord that are here to extract from Concord and from the region. And I'm really asking that everyone here not only just endorse me, but also help me on social media, come join my campaign, donate if you're able, and spread the word to your contacts in and around the Bay Area. This is something that Concord needs a progressive movement to be stronger here. And I will try and answer your questions as best as I can. I know we're up against a time limit here.
You'll get at least 3 questions, so.
First question goes to Joaquin. Joaquin, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I must have not taken down my hand.
No problem. Gordon, go ahead. Gordon, if you can hear us, we can't hear you. Still can't hear.
My apologies. First of all, very quickly, who's opposing you?
My opponent is a insurance salesman. He's the incumbent, Tim McGallion.
Okay. What is your position about drugs, criminalizing them, decriminalizing them, that sort of thing?
I think that we should be decriminalizing them.
Okay, decriminalize and regulate?
Yes. I'm sorry, it's been a long 2 hours.
Well, short and sweet. No, I like that. Cordell, do you have another one, Gordon?
Yeah, Naval Weapons Station is a very big deal. What's your opinion about what's going on there so far?
I can say much more about that than I can about criminalizing drugs. Currently, the city is in negotiations with a developer that back in August, after a 10-hour city council meeting, 1,800 people signed a petition saying, reverse this decision. They do not want the Sino group of partners to be developing the naval weapons station. It is it's a group that is really bad actors, covering from lots of litigation, but covering up the, oh gosh, environmental impact of a red-legged frog. They filled in a creek. They took down trees in the middle of the night. There are their history is just terrible in the region. In any case, my opponent and 2 others on the council have voted 3 times to continue to work with this developer group. And they know the sentiment and they know what the community is saying. They are very well aware of it, and they still continue to ignore what the community is saying. We are in an exclusive negotiating agreement. They have extended it till the end of January. We already have a PLA. We've got a project labor agreement already signed and sealed. So that's great. The building trades got what they needed, which they weren't getting with the prior developer. But right now, what's on the line, what's going to be negotiable is the community benefits agreement. And in May, the developers told the city they couldn't pencil it out. It wasn't working for them for the profit that they wanted. And I think that at that point in May, it was time to cut ties. And that's where I stand on that issue.
Thank
you,
you.
Laura. Thank you, Gordon. Just real quickly for our friends in Alameda who may not know about the Concord Naval Station reuse project. The Sinos developers is essentially a crime family. This developer company, the head was put in charge of the IRS by Donald Trump. They are environmental vandals. They have destroyed indigenous landmarks. They've endangered rare species. And we got to make sure that in East Contra Costa, they are not in control of projects like this. Cordell, you have a question. Go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. Yeah, so what is your position on, staffing, shortages in Concord?
Yeah, we do have them. I'm just becoming more and more aware of them. I know that in the police department, I've already been made aware of that, but recently I was informed about, it's happening everywhere. We have labor shortages everywhere. And I do think that the city of Concord should be looking at ways to retain good workers, but also I'm also being told there's mismanagement going on, and we really need to figure out what that is, because if people aren't happy in their jobs because mismanagement is happening, no amount of money at times can, and benefits can change how you feel on the job. So I'm in favor of making sure that we are paying a livable wage and that it is something that is at market rate for the Bay Area, so that we can, that's as a first step of retaining and bringing in quality workers.
Fantastic. Richard Lee has a question in the chat. Can you tell us, besides the Naval Station project, if there are any other major or important local issues that are worth paying attention to in terms of Concord politics?
Thanks, Richard. I think one of the biggest issues in Concord, and this is kind of regional too, is traffic. Back in 2016, I decided that it was going to be just as fast to get 7 miles by bike than by my car. So I started bike commuting, and that kind of launched me into advocacy for better bike lanes and looking at my city in a whole different perspective. The Naval Weapons Station is something that will greatly impact all areas in the region with regards to traffic. We really need to be making sure that transit, we have solid transit plans. There's something like 21 Bay Area agencies that that are in not control, but have to work together to make sure that we in the Bay Area have good connecting transitional, we're all working together and coordinating transit. And I think we can do better. Otherwise, we're never going to be able to it's part of us, the sustainability, but we won't be able to move forward and improve on where we are with climate.
Right. And Laura, final question, since you sort of brought it up. Concord has basically been inert when it comes to environmental policies of any kind. You on the city council, how will you change that? Can we see a Concord Green New Deal or something equivalent like that?
I'm going to be reaching out to Vanessa after this to learn everything I can.
Very good.
Yes, no, I definitely am someone who believes in doing anything we can for to be promoting and modeling good green choices to as a city, but also for residents. I'm someone, come on over and I'll show you my worm composting box. You know, and anyone knows that you know, if a coworker goes to grab me lunch, they know that it better not come back in a plastic container. So, I mean, and these are little things, but it's things that people know about me that I will be walking the walk.
I know that to be true. Laura Nakamura, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for standing up and running in Concord. We really do need a progressive movement to flourish there. Carol, back to you.
All right. What amazing candidates, huh? Okay, so what a couple things. One thing that was missed, a person may ask a question. Does she accept Section 8 tenants? That was asked of Mary Lee, and I didn't see it until she left. May, I will give you contact information for her and you can ask. And my guess is that she does. The other thing is, we've got some people here that I haven't seen around here before. If there's anybody that this is their first or second or third time or 50th time, and they just want us to know who you are, if anybody would like to say I'm so-and-so or maybe a sentence, we open that right now. Is there anybody here like that? Because we do have some people and we just want them to be welcome. And you're welcome even if you don't. Okay, Harry.
Harry.
Hi, everybody. I ran in 2020 and I was supported by this group, and I want to thank you for your support. And it was one of the proudest endorsements I had. And I was endorsed by the California State Democratic Party as well. So, I haven't attended very many meetings, but I do follow the mail. I do get reports, and I've worked with Mark on Bernie's campaign, and just happy that you exist, and we'll try to find some more time, but basically I'm pretty busy with my board. I'm on the West County Wastewater Board, trying to get that to become a leader in the climate action.
Harry's doing great work out there. Harry's doing really important work out there.
And
I'm really grateful.
I do have a candidate that I'm running for the board. And all right, can you hear me now?
Harry, go ahead and repeat that.
I said, I have a candidate that I support for the board, and I would really like him to get a questionnaire, and I'll have him contact you and see if the next time you have a meeting to endorse that he attends.
Okay, what's the person's name so we can keep an eye out?
His name is Jeff Winter.
Jeff Winter. Okay.
A union guy.
Okay. Okay, I just want to mention, May had asked a question regarding Section 8, and Mary Lee is still here. And I don't know if May has seen this, so I'll just read it. It says, yes, I do accept Section 8 tenants and have had several Section 8 tenants. Thanks for adding that, Mary Lee. Would anybody else like to introduce themselves or say something? Otherwise, we're going to get out of here. Okay, we got one more thing.
Oh, I had something
And-
to say, Carol.
What?
I had, oh,
Matthew, just hold a
I
second.
had
I'll give you
something.
30 seconds in a minute. Was there anybody else? Cordell, did you want?
Yes. Yes, I have an announcement to share with the group. So I
Okay.
would like to invite our Revolution East Bay to the El Cerrito Chamber of Commerce mixer on August 24th at 5:30 at Evolution 66 Brewery in El Cerrito. It's free.
All
They'll
right.
be here too, Carol.
Okay, thanks so much.
And so
We lost you again.
oh, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Were you complete?
Cordell, El
Yep, done.
Cerrito Evolutionary Brewery. What's the date on that again?
August 24th.
August
It's the fourth
24th.
Wednesday.
What's the time?
Right.
What time is it?
5:30.
Oh, okay.
5:30.
Okay. Chris Peoples has his hand up.
Sorry, and where?
Yeah. Evolution Brewery in El Cerrito.
Thank you.
If you know anybody who needs a job, AC Transit is hiring. We're entirely a union shop, and we pay very well, and there are phenomenal benefits: full medical care for you and your family, a real pension, tuition reimbursement if you want to advance yourself. Go to actransit.org/careers. But we are actively seeking a whole bunch of employees, but primarily operators and mechanics.
Great, thank you. Okay, I believe that's it, except for one thing. Matthew is going to talk for maximum of 1 minute regarding a Starbucks union that's going to be happening hopefully in Berkeley.
Oh, I first just want to remind folks, if you haven't paid dues, I'm going to post that link in the chat right after my meeting. And also, we are, before I get to the Starbucks thing, we have a vacancy on the rent board slate. Everybody who, if you're a Berkeley
Okay,
resident and you requested
Matthew, you were here for a particular thing.
Okay,
Say it.
sorry. I'll do just the Starbucks one then. So as we talked about, there's also unionization happening at Starbucks. They're voting, I believe, on the 22nd. This is the downtown Berkeley Starbucks. A quick and easy way you can support them is you just go to Starbucks, and when you order coffee, and you order it under the name Union Yes. So if you like, there's other ways you can do, but that's a bit more to support, but that are a bit more complicated. But that's the quickest and easiest way you can do. And yeah, make sure to check that they're open when you're planning to go. Me and my friend went a couple of days ago, and it turned out they were closed at 4. So, Carol, could I take 20 seconds to let people know about the convention?
Go for it.
Okay, great. So our Revolution East Bay is a co-sponsor of the Berkeley Rent Board Convention. After we selected the original slate, somebody was not able to continue as a slate member. There's now currently voting going on to select the 5th person. Anybody who received a ballot in the original vote has been sent a ballot to fill that final seat. So please check your email. There's a few folks on this call names I recognize as people who haven't voted yet. And if you can't find your ballot, you're going to want to email Berkeley Tenants Convention at gmail.com. And I'm going to post that as well. Yeah, this is the Progressive Pro Tenant Slate, the only folks you can trust to protect rent control in Berkeley. And here are the links for all 3 things.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Okay, everyone, we did it. It was absolutely crazy for me, and I think a couple other people. We didn't have our full team here tonight. A couple people are out of town that are usually doing parts of it. I hope we didn't miss anything in the chat that somebody put in. I thank everybody so much for being here. Please come back again. Please support us by becoming a member, or just if you don't want to be a member, you can just go to that link and give us some money. We take that too. And I really thank the OREB staff and all the candidates. Man, we rocked it tonight. Good night.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you all. Thank you, candidates.
And this